Architects have been using virtual reality to avoid expensive mistakes. Clients can walk around a building in advance of its construction to see if it actually works. Telescopes and microscopes reveal the universe at the largest and smallest scales. Virtual reality will give us direct experience of worlds very different from the one we inhabit. Here, a force feedback hand controller provides an accurate sense of the forces acting between molecules. Chemists can grab groups of atoms and manipulate them to design new drugs. Hospitals are investigating VR for the treatment of disease. Here...
Oh, excuse me, but it seems like you guys are getting a little bit institutional with this stuff. It's fun. If you don't mind, I'd like to grab inside your head for a minute and haul it over here and down here for a minute, where I've got some friends gathered at something called the Cyberthon. Well, you know, the Cyberthon, as it was originally conceived, was supposed to be the 90s equivalent of the acid test. And we had thought to involve some of the same personnel.
You and I and Timmy should sit down and talk.
Okay, that's good.
But because of the commercial nature of this, and because of the inherent gizmology, it immediately turned into something like a trade show, and it immediately acquired a financial quality or commercial quality that was initially a little unsettling to an old hippie like me, but as soon as I saw it actually working, then I thought, well, if you're going to have an acid test for the 90s, money better be involved.
What do you do when you have the heading on a swan? You can walk around the virtual world and it feels like you're walking.
Yeah.
Walking on a treadmill doesn't feel like you're walking.
What do you do in an architectural walkthrough where you run out of time?
Well, the Cyberthon was one of actually an extraordinary number of sort of virtual reality enthusiasts gatherings which have been happening lately. There's been literally hundreds of them all over the world. And I have mixed feelings about them. The Cyberthon was a particularly colorful one, and it certainly demonstrated an amazing degree of energy and commitment on the part of the attendees to stay up all night.
Yeah. It's done for RoboCop 2.
Well, what we did is we scanned Tom Noonan in a bunch of different facial expressions based on the part we thought he was going to play. Unfortunately, that part, which was filled with some subtlety and expression, was changed into Peter Weiler rips the brain out of the back of the robot and smashes it on the ground.
Jesus.
For a long time, I couldn't figure out what the people who espouse virtual reality were talking about. And then I went up to Cyberthon and spent 24 hours with them. And I realized a lot of them had come out of the Berkeley free speech movement and the psychedelic drug movement. And I realized that they had confused, in my opinion, psychedelic drug experience with transcendent life experience with interactive computer graphics. And I think some of it has to do with their desire to strike back at the passivity of television and also to give their children something to use, to explore, that isn't drugs and is positive.
I'm surprised at a couple of things. I'm surprised at how little a lot of people want to talk about this kind of thing. They don't want to hear about the cons. They don't want to talk about the dark side. They don't want to talk about what if we start doing virtual murder and rape. They don't want to talk about those things. They're not interested in those questions, I think, because it sort of takes the wind out of the sails.
Well, it's virtual dining. It's one of the two food places here. People have got them confused.
Mademoiselle, your entree, frosted plates.
Is it rolling?
Yeah.
It's all bullshit.
You just look around.
I have to fly a little higher.
When we actually look at virtual reality as it's shown to us today, I think it's ultimately disappointing. There are lag times in it. The pictures that we see aren't very interesting on either a visual level or a narrative level. And so the danger is that people will go away with a negative opinion about what will be an exciting art form, and that it'll set the field back from public acceptance.
William Gibson was sort of bemused. I can imagine what it must be like to have a science fiction writer tries to make a plausible artificial world based on trends he sees in the real world. And he kind of invented this matrix of the future and this cyberspace without a great deal of knowledge about the history of the technology for making head-mounted displays.
The speed with which this technology has manifested itself continues to amaze me, but I do worry sometimes when I feel that the people who did read those first books of mine, or that some of the people who read those first books of mine seem to have missed a level of irony, because perhaps several levels of irony.
Hi, what you're looking at here are some demos put together using Sensage Software World Tool on a very inexpensive Sun Spark Station, $9,000 worth of hardware. You can do real-time 3D applications, like this demo involving the Mattel Power Glove, the space ball, and the displays that you see the young lady using in the phlogiston chair.
The whole thing feels like the frontier to me. You've got these companies that remind me a little bit of the fur companies that were responsible for the original excursions into the West, and they've got kind of a loincloth and machete quality to them. They're hunkered down and they're doing some pretty fundamental stuff in some pretty fundamental ways, and they're a little raw-boned in their competition with one another, which I think is probably appropriate.
Perhaps it's no coincidence that VR appeals to the same crowd who brought us flower power, Woodstock, and mind-expanding drugs. Virtual reality holds the same promise as the dreams that inspired the 60s counterculture, and very probably some of the same dangers. For better or worse, this is where it's all heading.